those of you who will be looking at the video later and watching the video, I mean. And today we will be talking about different things. You can see the agenda on screen. We have an overview of the skills and competencies that are evaluated by Proa Saberonce, which are also practiced with the game. So in case you missed our previous webinar, which you're likely to see later, you will have the chance to just get to know what it is about. Then we will focus on specifically missions 3, 5, and 6, and how we can provide pedagogical support to our learners that can deal with the skills and competencies that are practiced with those missions. And we will be talking about fostering intercultural reflection. How can we get learners to compare Colombian culture with the culture of other countries? So that's basically the program for today. Of course, you will have time for comments and questions. I will try and do my best to manage time. But if you feel that I'm speaking too fast, please let me know, because that happens to me even in Spanish. And so type it and Jairo will let me know, right? Thanks. Well, so having said this, just quick reminders. The idea is that you have something to write on. You will be receiving presentation, so you don't have to take notes of everything you see, but I would say take notes of the relevant ideas. Maybe you say, oh, that's something new for me, I don't know, or what a good idea, why not with my learners. So take pay attention. We will have some interactive activities, and those activities will we will be sending a link, or we will showing you something to use your QR reader with your mobile phone, so you can use them. And of course, as Haida pointed out, if you have any questions, please use the chat box, and we will do our best to answer. In case there is something that we are not able to answer, tutors will have the job to get back to you and help you with those responses, right? So that's how we in like the first part before start. Let's get into business. Well, so we have the first slide over here, and this is about the overall comparison between Be the One challenge game and Prueba Saber. And it is interesting that we have this picture on screen, because we are comparing. And as you see, we have equality being presented here. We have Prueba Saber 11, Prueba Saber 11, and then we have the game, right? Now, why are they similar? Because there is a clear relationship. Each of the missions, the game has 7 missions, and each of the parts or components of Prueba Saber. So now we're going to revise, what the connection is, how each of the missions relates to Prueba Saber. But before we do that, we want to be using the app with your students. So if the answer is yes, I'm using the app with all of my students in one course, please type A in the chat box. If your answer is with some of them, type B. If the answer is just a few of them, C. And if the answer is not yet, D, please.
Okay, Lore, teachers are really active today, and we have a lot of responses in this moment. And I would say 90% of the teachers say D, which means not yet, right? There are a couple of teachers that say C. There is one teacher that says A, all of
Wow.
them.
Congratulations to that
But
teacher.
yes, that was teacher Dilsa Calderon. She said A. But I would say 92% of the teachers say D, option D.
Right. Thank you very much. Well, teachers, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if your answer is D, you shouldn't be surprised, or you shouldn't feel bad, because that is the reality. We asked different things. One of them was for you to know more about the game before you ask your learners to do it. And I am aware that there have been some problems with registration, so that is also maybe one of the reasons why you haven't been able to start. Hopefully, after this webinar and after you complete all the activities in Unit 1, you have like a clearer view of what the game is about and how you can practice. Those of you who are reporting problems with access, at the beginning of the session, we were talking a bit about that. I can let you know that part of the problem is with the server where the game is located. If you have an issue with this, then you are. My suggestion is take a photograph. Keep a screenshot of the problem, and then you send an email to the support email, and you can get responses back. But Before we get that problem sorted out, we also want to know what the game is for, how to use it, and how we can help our learners benefit as well. We are aware also that some learners do not have connectivity, so just quick reminder, in case they do get the opportunity to download the app, they will only need a Wi-Fi or internet connection for two processes. One, downloading the game. Second, registering. Once they have registered, they sort it out and they can continue playing.
Sí, papi. Yo está terminando los talleres.
Okay, so what we have over here is competencies and skills. We see that we have 7 different parts of Prueba Saber. So you see Prueba Saber part 1, 2, and we're going to see the connection with the definitions of and what they are in the exam we are evaluating, and with the game we are practicing, right? So when we're talking about Prueba Saber part 1, we are talking about the lexical content. So that is our learner's ability to understand a word and then to relate it to its definition. So understanding the term and giving it the right definition. So if a learner is, for example, able to say something like a teacher is the person who gives explanations or provides instruction or teaches something, then connecting the word and the definition, they are showing that they have developed their lexical competence. Now, something important is need to remember that goal for the Ministry of Education is that learners achieve B1 level. So the game starts evaluating at A1 level. Then we have vocabulary. Those who are playing at intermediate, they have vocabulary that is at A2 level. And then advanced is vocabulary at B1 level. And the competency is the same, but of course, learners need to know more and have a larger range of vocabulary when it comes to lexical competence at more advanced levels. Right? Then we have the pragmatic competence. Those of you who were with us in the first webinar, remember that we had a meme of Ryan Gosling saying like, excuse me, something like that. um, in a way, pejorative, despective, like, why are you talking to me? Who do you think I am? Or something like that. So when we're talking about pragmatic competence in general, you know that it's a very important part of communication. It's much more than understanding a word, but it's understanding the word and relating it to the context and understand if it's formal, if it's formal, if it's probably giving a negative message or a positive message. And when it comes to crossover, the thing is that a bit limited. Pragmatic competence in here is or has to do with just identifying a sign, reading a sign, and then relating it to the right context. Yeah, so they know, oh, I can see the sign maybe in a hospital or at a cafeteria or places like this. So it connects words to the respective places where they can be found. Then we have part 3 of Prueba Saber is communicative knowledge. And this is when learners have a conversation, a dialogue. They need to select what is the most likely or the best, most suitable option to complete the dialogue. Then we have Prueba Saber part 4, grammatical knowledge. I think that one is easier because normally learners do practice grammar with the workbooks or some of the activities we give them. Then we have Prueba Saber part 5. That one has to do with literal reading. And Prueba Saber part 6, inferential reading, which is a more complex level of reading comprehension skills. And finally, we have Prueba Saber part 7, which is combining two of the competences that we have discussed before. The lexical competence, that is understanding vocabulary in context, and we have grammatical competence. And we have specific activities, as you were remembered maybe when you were doing the interactive activities in Unit 1, Lesson 1, you notice that we have closed tests, so tests in which there is a text that is incomplete and learners are expected to choose words and select the right words according to the context, right? So this is in general, what is assessed, what is evaluated, what is on. Mr. Sangali, I think we are getting a little bit of noise from your computer. You can turn your microphone. Please look at this map. And what we have over here is from the missions, the different missions of the game. And you see that we have these wide maps because the idea with the game is that learners who are playing, they take the detective role and they go decoding different objects, finding pieces of a puzzle in a way in each of the different museums that are located in different parts of the world. So we started, the first museum is in Colombia, so we have mission one. And the games that we have in this mission are meant to develop learners' pragmatic competence. As we were saying, the one that relates us to the place in which they can be identified or they belong to. I mean, then we have mission two, physical competence. Mission three, communicative knowledge. Mission four, grammatical knowledge. Mission five, literal reading skills. Learners need to understand words that are specifically stated in the reading, so maybe numbers. You can find questions like, I don't know, when did this event take place? And there is something in the text in which you can find, or a piece of a paragraph, a date, name, or a number, something like this that is literal. Learners don't need to share anything beyond, but that's information and connected. Then we have inferential reading skills, a bit more complex because the information is not explicit, it is implicit. So learners need to work it out. They need to decide, is the author uh, agreeing with this idea, or maybe disagreeing with the idea, providing reasons or explaining. So they need to understand the purpose of the text, what they are reading, or they also need to understand what is the author's point of view regarding the information presented. So learners normally need to understand literal reading skills first in order to develop inferential reading skills. We will talk about that later. And finally, we have the lexical and grammatical exercises that are with mission 7. So as you can see, we have exactly the same competences, and they are almost the differences between the real exam and missions 1 and 2. Because it's mission. And in the exam, that is the second part of the exam, right? So that is the only one that is misplaced, that it doesn't correspond. So mission 1 in the game is part 2 of Prueba Saber 11, and part 1 of Prueba Saber is actually mission 2, right? So this is the only one. The others are in the same order. So with all this in mind, what we want you to do is now check what you remember. If you have a QR reader in your mobile phone, if you have an application installed for that, I invite you to use your QR code scanner and scan, what we have, the QR code that we have on the screen. If you do that, you will be sent to the link. If not, Jairo has already sent via chat, the same link. What we need you to do is select Sarmiento 6206, which is the room where we want to play. Yes, thank you, Heidi. That's the code. Can you please share your screen so we know what happens with this game? For those of you who have not played this game before, this is a space race. So when you enter, you will be divided into groups automatically. So once you enter the website, you will be sent to a room with another group. They will tell you team blue, team magenta, team lime, team violet. And you answer the questions are correct, then your spaceship will move. So the idea is we want to see the first one finish the race. All right. So how many people have entered the game? 11?
Lauren, so far in this moment, let me see, 11, yes.
Okay, sure, teacher. The only thing you need to do is enter the link that is in the chat box, and then in where it says room, type Sarmiento 6206, and then you just start playing the game. If you answer questions correctly, then the station will move. So now we can see Peach and Blue team are, having, come on, lime, magenta, violet, you can do it. Team and Peach, almost the same. Okay, Violet, started in the game. The other team, Magenta, Lime. Okay, Lime team has already started. Blue and Peach really close. Let's see. Wow, congratulations to the Peach now leading the game. All the questions, of course, have to be priority level. The really very good for Team Magenta. Teacher, my left, please use. You can use the link in the chat box, and then you type Sarmiento 6206. Peach team, very good. Blue team, blue and lime team are really having teacher Jandy. I think we can resend the link. Just give me a sec. We'll see if we can do it. We are almost about to finish. Those of you who are in all right, thank you, Haida. Peach and violet and blue. Who will be the winner? We don't know. Oh my God, we have a winner. Violet
Final.
team. Fantastic. Let's see who got second place. So first place, Violet team. Second place,
Pitch.
Peach team. Okay, very good. And who chose the color? It was the computer teacher. When you entered, the computer just sent you to one of these color teams. We will send the links via the chat box. So those of you who were not able to do it, oh, sorry, our WhatsApp group, so you can play it afterwards, right? But you can keep on practicing. Oh, we have 3 winners already. So Violet, Peach, and Lime, congratulations, well done. But in general, I think the fact that everyone is heading to the end shows that what we were talking about, what we were presenting was clear enough. Very, very good. If you haven't tried this is Socrative. It's very easy. You don't need to pay for it. It's free. And the only thing you need to do is to have a Gmail account. So if you have a Gmail account, create your account and you create quizzes like this. I'm pretty sure your learners will love them. Okay, so thank you very much. Now I'm going to share once again the presentation. Thank you, Haida, for showing up. Very good. Let me know when you can see the presentation again, please.
It's loading. It's loading in this moment. Okay, there you go.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we have finished the first part of our session. Just yes, taking a moment to review it. Before we begin, make sure your microphone is on.
Teacher William, I'm trying to turn off the mic, but it doesn't let me.
Yes, I think everyone felt that noise, but thank you. Okay, so in this first part, we were talking about the parts of Prosa. Just quick recap. We have 7 different parts of Prosa, and we have a game that has 7 missions. And there is a clear connection between each of the missions and what the Prosa are evaluating. And the only thing that is different is the order. You know, in mission 1, part 2 of and part 1 of Prosa is practice with the second mini game, right? Okay, so just an idea for those who came a little late. And now we're going to continue with the second part of this presentation, which will be specifically focused on missions 3, 5, and 6. As reminders, mission 1 was presented with the first webinar. So in case you had not seen it yet, you will be able to watch the recording because your tutors have made it available. missions 2, 4, and 7, which are connected to lexical competence and grammatical competence. They are practiced with one of the interactive activities in Unit 1, Lesson 1 in the platform. And now we're going to talk about the last three missions, missions 3, 5, and 6, right? So having said this, let's talk about the context of the mission. So the first part is Museum of Adventure. Remember that the idea here is learners go traveling around the world to different places, different cities, and in this case, they're traveling to New Zealand, a different country. And those of you who know where New Zealand is located and know a little bit about New Zealand, I'd like you to type your chat box, please, know about New Zealand culture. Anything that rings a bell? No, maybe you say, oh, New Zealand, the sport, or this music, or this culture, rugby. Oh, perfect, perfect.
Rugby.
Yes, very good. Anything else that you know about New Zealand? They do have a very famous rugby team. Okay, very good, teacher. Auckland. Right. All Blacks. That's the best team. I didn't know the name of the team, so thank you for sharing. Maori culture. Yes, yes, teacher Alexi. So there's something important. They do have Aboriginal tribes preserved, part of the culture. That's something we have in common with Colombia. We have several native, tribes still remaining and cultures. So with New Zealand, but of course it's completely different, right? So it is an opportunity to start comparing and contrasting things that we have. So now going back to the museum, when learners reach Mission 3, they are going to find the Museum of Adventure in New Zealand, and they will be able to decode these objects. You see that it says A1, A2, B1, because it depends on the level that learners are playing. If they are playing at beginner level, when they complete the mission, when they pass the mini game, they're going to be able to decode this object, the Maori boat sculpture. If they are playing at intermediate level, then they will decode the jade necklace. Not as beautiful, I have it. Something green is not jade, is not as beautiful as the necklace that we have here. Um, and then we have bone carving. I think I missed one of the comments in the chat box. What was that about?
No, they're talking about gorgeous Maori's choreography, landscapes. They're talking about sports, Auckland, the capital city, and there is another city that is called the All Blacks. Professor Jonathan Vies is very interested on the team from that city.
Oh, very good. Thank you for sharing that knowledge. I do know about the choreography. You're right. This is something that is particularly, I would say, unique. It's something really, really beautiful, and they do it, and it's more like warlike, like we are here to win. Yeah, very good. Okay, so always worth taking some time, before asking learners to go to mission 3. Why not? Let's stop. Let's find about this country. And when learners start playing the mission, you can tell them, okay, so what did you learn about Maori culture, or what did you find? In this case, we only have one mini game. The mini game is called Talking Clues because this is the part of the exam. This mini game relates to the part of Prueba Saber in which there is a conversation or a conversation prompt, part of an interaction, and then learners are expected to complete what is missing in order to complete the conversation. So this game is aimed at developing learners' communicative knowledge, which is part of their discourse competence. I would say that sometimes we think, but why do we need to practice speaking? Yeah, if that is not evaluated. Sometimes we think that we might feel the temptation to think something like this, but the truth is that this this exam does have an opportunity for us to check our learners' communicative knowledge, and we're going to see how. Learners are expected to know how to keep the ball going in a way, how to keep the conversation going. So let's talk a little bit more about part 3 of prosa and how it relates to communicative knowledge. So on the screen, you're seeing the screenshot of the game, you see that there is the learner's avatar on the left. We can see the avatar in this picture, with two blonde ponytails, and then we have uh, tails instead, and then we have a woman on the right hand, and that woman has a yellow and red dress and has something drawn. It's because the Maori culture also has tattoos, so this will some tattoo in her face, and then we see an interaction. It says like good morning, and then we have different options, and learners are expected to select what is the most appropriate response for each of the questions. So the idea is with this game, learners are completing a dialogue. They keep the discussion between the avatar, which is detective, and the person who runs the museum. And over here, they have 10 exchanges. So it's 10, five basically five different questions and five different answers, and two rounds. And they all have to do this in 6 minutes. This is the only time they have to read, understand the options, select the most appropriate, continue. Now, what can we say about the discourse competence? Well, there are different things. One of them is that Canal and Swain identified it as part of the communicative competence. So this is not something that is isolated. We know that we also want learners to develop their communicative competence. Everything is, when we are talking about English teaching, we always end up saying how important it is to communicate and communicative competence, and that's like part of the trend. But it's very important that we understand communicative competence implies different things, and one of them is the competence. In Spanish, we call this competencia discursiva. So maybe we want to know more about what it means. Then we have another definition, it's a decade later, and this is about two key words, coherent and cohesive, coherence and cohesion. So, and also understanding that is for both oral and written form. So here we are not talking about writing, we're talking about how important it is that if somebody asks a question, you answer in an appropriate form. For example, if somebody says, would you like a cup of coffee? What could be an appropriate response? You can type your answers in the chat. The question is, would you like a cup of coffee?
Teacher Jonathan says, yes, please.
Right. I agree with you, teacher. Yes. Good. Yes, please. Yeah, that would be the best way. Any other possibilities?
Teacher Rosa says, yes, I would like. Teacher Edgar says, not now. Teacher Lady says, sure, thank you. Teacher Liliana says, it would be great. Teacher Virginia says, course. And then, yes, I would like, of course. Oh, please.
Okay, very good. Well, I have to agree with some of you, and I'm afraid I have to disagree with some of you, right? And I will clarify why. When we're using an expression like "would you like," it's an invitation, right? It's an offer, and the idea is not necessarily resort to grammar. We are not using would, so the answer is would. I know maybe some of you were thinking about that. So when we are using this, we don't say would you like, and then we say yes, I would. That is grammatically correct, but it's not pragmatically correct, right? So remember what we studied about mission one. So according to grammar, the correct answer is yes, I would, or no, I wouldn't. But according to pragmatics, what we need to answer is yes, please, or no, thanks. And we only have two options, right? If we want to decline the offer, we say no, no, thanks. And if we want to accept the offer, we say yes, please, right? So these are the only two options. And sometimes, and I would say this happens in Spanish, sometimes in Spanish we say, ay, sí, por favor. In English, we wouldn't be able to say that, right? Because yes, please, is a mismatch of pragmatic meaning. Yeah, it's a pragmatic fail. So in English, we would say, would you? Yes, please, or no, thanks. I was going to say what? Sí, gracias. That's our mistake in Spanish. Sí, gracias. Oh, well, no. It's no, thanks, or yes, please. Right? Okay, so that would be being coherent. If somebody is offering, you accept or you decline, right? When it comes to speaking. When it comes to writing, it has to do with having complete sentences and sentences that are connected to one another. They follow a logical order, And we use connectors, linking words. So you know one idea is connected to the other idea, not just a collection of sentences put together. That's what learners sometimes do, right? And then the last, and I would say most important part of this definition is the one that was provided by Littlewood in 2011. And it's talking about how discourse competence is connected to interaction. Yeah? So it's not something that is just something to read or to listen to, but it's to be able to interact with one another. If somebody says, can you help me? Then I know what is the expected response. I would say, yes, sure, I can help you. Or I would say, oh, no, sorry, I'm busy. I will find somebody else, right? But you know what is the expected response you are going to produce. And you keep the conversation going. So when we are talking about speaking, it's pretty much like playing a tennis game. Somebody hits the ball, they say something, and we're expected to answer back. Yeah, so we keep the discussion going, and that is why discourse competence is important, so we know how to keep the ball going in a way. Well, so the thing is, how do I know that my students have developed their discourse competence? Because normally when we think about coherence or when we think about cohesion, we tend to think that is for learners who are maybe in 11th and 11th grade. We tend to think that is maybe only for writing, for essays, for letters, for compositions, or something like this. I like the information that we have on the screen because it can show us how we can develop learners' discourse competence from grade 6, when they are starting. Even if kids have the opportunity in primary, they will be able to do it. Of course, at their level, right? They will develop discourse competence at A1, and then they will need to develop at A2, B1, B2, and so on. How? First point that we have over here on the screen, you see, says they can start and maintain a conversation. They can ask and answer questions. That can be as simple as asking, "What's your name?" Oh, say, "Oh, my name is Lorena. Nice to meet you." Right? So I can start the conversation and I can maintain the conversation. So if somebody says that, I say, "Oh, what about you? What is your name?" Right? Something very simple, but we have learners who are able to start the conversation or respond and continue by answering questions or asking them. So can it be done at A1 level? Yes, definitely. It can be done. And of course, when learners progress with their English level, their interaction and the conversation can be more complex. It can be more rich, in the sense that it has more vocabulary and, more elaborate grammar and so on. But if not, at least we know they are able to answer simple questions. If they know, oh, let me check. Oh, it's 20 to 5. Yeah. So when they are able to do this, they can start and maintain conversations. They can ask and answer questions. We know we are doing our job right. We know we are helping them develop their discourse. Another thing is that we have another point to help us understand this is that learners are able to link ideas and they are able to convey a message with clarity. That applies both to speaking and to writing. So we have, for example, learners who are giving a presentation. We know that sometimes we ask them come and present in front of the class. If we have learners who just, produce something and they are not able to continue, they say something like, I have a dog. And the dog is black. It has 4 legs. Yeah, but there is no linkage between the ideas. We have several sentences somehow which are not, joined together using linking words. Then we know we need to help them with this because in real communication we use connectors, we use expressions, to make sure that the production is more fluent. So if learners are able to say something like, well, my dog is black, its name is Lucky, it's big, I love it because it's very playful. Yeah, we are connecting more ideas. So in this case, we know they are starting to develop their discourse. And of course, last but not least, is writing is also connected to this discourse competence. And this is when learners are able to produce good paragraphs. And you know what I mean, because normally when we are checking compositions, when we are checking learners' written work, we find that learners sometimes write sentences together. They put them together and they pretend it's a paragraph. And we know that it's not a paragraph because a well-structured paragraph has a topic sentence or a main idea, has some subsidiary ideas, ideas that are contributing to the sentence, to that topic sentence. So when learners are able to produce well-structured paragraphs, they have really reached the higher point of the just for you to have an idea, when a person, I sometimes have given IELTS preparation workshops, to teachers, and one of the key points that I mentioned is that when learners are able to produce a good paragraph, they are preparing an essay or they are writing something. So you have a topic sentence, the main idea, and you have supporting ideas that are contributing, and you end up with solid paragraph created. It's basically the difference between having B1 and in IELTS. IELTS comes per band. So the difference between band 5 and band 6 is paragraphs. So if learners can produce good paragraphs, we are already helping them, get to B2 level and higher. So just for you to know. Okay. So what else can we say about the discourse competence? It is directly related to different aspects. One of them is cohesive devices. And cohesive devices is what we know also as linking connectors. Learners are able to use at, at A1 level, they know how to use and, but, because, yeah, these are very simple, but these linking words are important. And they connect ideas, that follow the same line, but because they contrast ideas and because they give reason, right? So we know this. When they are able to use this, they're already starting to develop their discourse competence. Of course, with more time and more levels, they will be able to add more to that. So they will be able to use however and more, like other linking. We have the thing about genre. And genre is talking about the difference of expected output. You are, for example, participating in an interview. Imagine it's a job interview. So that it's formal, not only dress formal, but also the language that we don't go and say, hi, my name is Lorena. You go out, good afternoon, my name is Lorena. I'm here to, I applied for this job. And so body language that you use is formal, and it's part of that, part genre. But if we are talking about an informal conversation with friends at a party, of course you wouldn't go to your friends like, hi, my name is, hi, welcome. No, it's more like, hey, great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. Tell me, are you having a good time? What about your mom? Right? So the gestures change, the intonation changes, and also the expressions that we use. Right? So we know that we wouldn't say "hi mate" to one of our boss, somebody like that, or buddy. We would go like Mr. or Mrs. Thank you very much, right? But when you're talking to your colleagues, to your friends, you will even use nicknames. So that is something that is also connected to this person. Then we have C, that it says signposting language. Signposting language is interesting because it's not precisely linking words, but it's more expressions that we use to announce the order of an idea. When we are asking learners to have a presentation, it's always good to tell them how you to use expressions like um, the introduction of this presentation is. Mhm. Now, changing ideas, we will refer to. Finally, we will talk about, see, you say the introduction, changing ideas. Finally, these words, these expressions are signposting language because they are pointing to the order of the ideas in your speech or your presentation. Of course, learners can do this when we use time references. Examples, their daily routine, and they write, in the morning, later, I will do that. Yeah, so this later, after that, next, and following, finally, yeah, these are signposting language. And finally, we have fillers and pauses. In fillers and pauses, we know they are connected to fluency, but they are also very important because they help with they help us even when we are not. This is when we use expressions like, hmm, well, let me think. It's it's hard. Well, give me a sec. Well, yeah, my ideas are. If you listen carefully to what I say, probably you say, "Ah, Lorena, you said nothing," and you're right. I didn't say anything. I was just using fillers. I was just using some of these words, that are in English, and give the idea that you use the language proficiently, but you just gain some seconds to be able to structure your ideas properly and to produce them. Right? So fillers and pauses are important. There's a big difference between just being completely silent and looking at the person who asks a question like, "Ugh," and well, give me a sec, let me think. I'm not sure about that. See? I haven't said anything, but it gives the idea that I'm actually communicating, and it buys time, thinking time, so you can produce your ideas. And this is something that we can help. We can provide learners cohesive devices, can help them with understand the differences of communication, formal and informal communication depending on the genre, understanding what signposting to use, and finally, of course, learning to use fillers and pauses. And once again, when I'm preparing, teachers for IELTS, I tell them teach your learners fillers, help them, use this vocabulary. So when they stop to say, at least they will be able to use those seconds to continue.
Lore, I'm sorry. The thing is that I don't know if maybe there's any internet connection problem, but we're not listening pretty well to what you're saying. It's like having pauses,
All
right? So
right.
we
So
don't know if maybe it's the microphone or the internet connection.
give me a sec, please, and I will
Okay,
just make
don't worry.
sure to connect by cable so we have more steady connection.
Thank you, Lore. Thank you, dear teachers. We're going to wait maybe for 1 minute until Lorena gets ready.
Oh, can you still hear?
Yes, Lore.
All right. Uh, do I have to go back to, I don't know, is
I
there,
know.
do I have to repeat this part? Or?
No, Lore. I think it was just like some pauses, but I think we understood what you were talking about. I don't know if the teachers maybe can say, maybe confirm, say yes if everything is clear so far, if we are ready to continue. So they say yes.
Okay,
So don't
great.
worry, Lore. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right. Of course, if you have any questions, remember you can type them and then Heido will let me know. We'll try and answer that at the end. Okay, so what we were talking about was this first competence, which is mission 3. And now we're going to see what support we can provide for learners. So pedagogical support. I want you to think of the advice that you would give to your learners. They take Prueba Saber or they are going to play the game and they have the same situation. They have one part of a dialogue and 4 options. Now they need to choose one. What advice would you give them so they are able to keep the conversation going, right? And you compare them to these before I show you this. If you have any ideas, type them in the chat box and then I will show you. I don't want to show you right away. What ideas do you have? Maybe to help learners develop their communicative knowledge, to be prepared for that mission.
Teacher Carmen says use role play to practice real conversations.
Definitely, yes, teacher, yes. In the exam, we know that we do not have a formal speaking test, but in a way, part 3 of Prueba Saber is evaluating learners' communicative competence, yeah? Because we know this core competence is part of the communicative competence. Right, okay. So now you can compare your ideas with the ones that I'm going to present. So yes, One very important part is that we match the question types with the expected responses. So learners know that when you ask where, it's because you are asking for a location. They know that you ask why because you're asking for a reason. Yeah, it sounds easy, but it's not. Sometimes learners get confused, right? So we need to give them practice. One of my favorite games, and this is something that I share, is I like to give them, like Jeopardy. I give them the answer, and they have to give me the question. Yeah. So I say, if the answer is yes, he does, what is the question? And they have to provide any possible question. What would you say? Can you please type in the chat box? The answer is yes, he does.
They
What
are
question
still
can you
they
ask?
are still they are still giving ideas of
All
how
right.
to
What have
promote
they
the
said?
communication. It's basically making like realistic context situations, describing situations, like giving real examples, dialogues, and using vocabulary in context. And now there's teacher Edna who has a question for the answer and the exercise you just said.
Uh-huh.
Teacher Edna says, does she understand the tasks? Teacher Patricia says, does he work? Teacher, there's another teacher. Does Juan study here? Does your father work in the farm? Does he like learning new strategies to teach English? And there are many more questions, Lori.
Very good, very good. So thanks for those pieces of advice you were offering. I agree, very good ideas. And also for those of you who answered, my exercise, the trick for teacher Edna, I think you read, is the answer was yes, he does. So if the question is does she, that wouldn't be correct. Yeah. So this is part of the trick. We can have something like this. We can have one of those possible responses be yes, he does, and then you need to check is it yes he does or no he doesn't or no she doesn't depending on the original question, right? So help learners practice this. That's very, very useful. Another option, it says plan language awareness tasks to help identify discourse markers. Remember, previously we mentioned discourse markers are linking words, are these expressions also that mark when you are giving your presentation or instruction, when you go like first, then, after that, finally, yeah, so indicating the order or the progression of ideas. So how can we plan awareness tasks? If you remember for mission one, we were talking about pragmatics and we use a meme. So one way is, having an example that learners can understand and then eliciting what is the order. What I have personally done is that I photocopy of the readings from the textbook. Normally readings, have paragraphs that go in order. I give learners those sliced copies of the paragraphs, so the paragraphs are in this order. And what they need to do is jumble them, try to put them in the right order. They need to say, okay, paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I ask them why. So what matters is not really if the order is right. Of course, that is important. But what matters for me in that case is that they are able to tell me, teacher, because it says first, so it must be the first one. I say, oh, great, underline it or circle it or use your highlighter, expressions that indicate the order first. And maybe they found another one that says, however, and they say, oh, there's a different idea. It goes in a, different paragraph expressing different orders. So this is what I want, what I ask them to do. Identify those words that indicate progression or indicate change in the order of ideas. So this is just to give you one of my tips, but of course, there are many other things you do to help learners identify those discourse marks. And then we have number 3 says provide opportunities for language practice with communicative activities in pairs and groups. I think that relates to what teacher Carmen said, if I'm not wrong, about having more communication. And yes, that's definitely the way. If you do like I'm doing right now, I'm afraid, if you are the only one who's speaking, then learners don't get to practice, right? And that, of course, this happens in a webinar, but this shouldn't happen in our classes. So we need to give learners opportunities for them, to use the language. So paired work with role plays, yes, very good, but other types of tasks, like we have information gap tasks, so that is when you give information to one person and the other person has other parts of the information. And in order to complete it, they need to exchange ideas and communicate, right? This is typical of other exams like PET and CAT exams, which are Cambridge exams for A2 and B1 level. And in those exams, one of the learners, well, actually one of the candidates for the exam, receives a piece of paper, for example, with information about this webinar. So it says topic, missions 3, 5, and 6 webinar. Then it says presenters, Lorena Molina. Moderator, Jairo Andrés Sarmiento. Invited or guests, teachers from the Inspiring Teachers program, right? And then it says date and time, Thursday, the 6th of August, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., right? I have this information, but my friend doesn't have it. So what this person has, most likely, is something like what, when, who, time, something like this, only prompts. And in order to find information, this person must ask me questions, right? And I am not allowed to come and show. I need to keep it secret, and we need to struggle to communicate. So this is a great activity. We call this activity information gaps. Those of you who are using Way to Go book and English Please books, you know that there are some similar tasks in which you have student A, student B, and they have different information and they have to exchange. It doesn't work if learners look at both parts, because then the example is just practice, but it's not real communication. So just when you do activities like this, make sure learners have different parts, questions or answers, for example, and they don't get to see what they have. So they really need to communicate in order to find those answers. Okay, and the final tip that we have is expose them to authentic listening tasks and materials. And we do know that the more you listen, the better listening skills you develop. The more you practice, the more you learn, right? So over here is basically the same. If learners have more opportunities for listening to real speakers, real communication, songs, podcasts, um, TV programs, pieces of language, okay, the dialogues that we have, the recordings that we have in the books, the better. And they will be able to identify also these little things or change that changes from formal to informal language or depending on the genre. Okay, so time you to do something. uh, material, reading material. Well, if you have readers, access to readers, I know in case you list of readers that are graded readers. So you have, I don't know, thinking about books, Harry Potter's book. Okay, that was the first thing that came to my mind. I don't think Harry Potter is in that list, but anyway, that's what I mean. Real books that have written for English speakers, and PDAs our learners can get to use. Other examples of real could be finding the menu from a restaurant. So if you find an online restaurant, just send the link and tell them, okay, find how much is the hamburger, how much, a soda. And they will need to use that real material that is online and it's available and it's free. So this is something that we can do as well. And of course, TV series, real songs, even with mistakes, can learn lyrics and kind of. So yeah. Okay, so on the screen, what suggestions would you give so learners can choose the best answer initially? And for this, we have a Padlet. And if you have a QR code, if not, I think Ira is going to help us send the link via chat.
With the link.
Yes, please. And you are invited to enter Padlet and just take one of the sticky notes and write what advice, what recommendations you have. So, Ida, we are all yours. That Padlet.
Loretta, can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's ready. We can see it.
Okay, so we're waiting for teachers, right?
Yeah. Okay, teachers, you can have you just click on the link on the screen and you will be able to participate in our Padlet game. Well, brainstorming task, I would say. Remember that to get started, you only need to click on the right cross that appears at at the right bottom, right corner bottom. This is not with room teacher. It's just clicking on the link and then you will find it.
There is one comment already from one teacher, and it says, listening podcasts about things they like.
Okay. Yeah. We are well, we are 63 participants. So I think we should get at least 15 different ideas.
There is another teacher that says dialogues, another teacher that says discourse competences.
Okay. Yes, we agree with those ideas. Dialogue is important. Yeah. They need to practice this formal and informal dialogues, I would say.
Movie trailers.
Oh, movie trailers, interesting. Yes, I like that idea. So you show them part of the movie, especially when they have a question or something provoking, and you stop the video and elicit possible responses. I think that would be great. And then I suppose you will show them the video to check. So yes, good for listening and good for speaking. What else?
There is some teacher that says cartoon characters with the Fanny's episodes. Well, movies, listening to songs, some listening exercises from the British Council for Teens, playing
Yeah.
with emojis in situations where we can use them, studying movie dialogues. We have express likes and dislikes, music. There is a teacher that says practice, practice, and practice.
Absolutely. That teacher couldn't be more right with that. Yes. I like that somebody has mentioned cartoons. I
Mhm.
have used them. Comic strips as well. I ask them create them. When we have this shy learner who doesn't like to speak to others or participate, you say, okay, fine, don't do it. But you need to create the cartoon and add the voices. So you give them that trick. So this person is not going to speak once, but twice. Not only one person, but the interaction that happens among the characters. So that's a way to have them practicing speaking, even if they don't like to speak to others.
Mhm.
What other
Lore,
ideas?
we have here sharing experiences during the day. We also have video games. We have read and listen carefully to the instructions. Let me see, what else do we have? Video games, avatars, and their speeches, good music, role plays.
All the ideas that you have provided, teachers, are really, really useful. So well done. Thank you for sharing. Padlet will continue to keep your ideas. So I will be sharing the link in our what or via those of you who are not in my group, maybe it will be posted in the announcement forum or something. So you can take a look at the ideas that you have all been provided. And the good thing is that when we link Padlet to our online platform, you can keep adding ideas, and improving this. So thank you very much for sharing all those things that we can do to help learners continue improving their discourse competence. I'm going to get back to the presentation, Haido. Thank you very much, teachers, for your participation there. Do we have any comments in the chat about that?
Yes, we have a couple of comments. Teacher Jonathan says playing the silly story. Then we have watching movies, tales, podcasts.
Yes. Okay, so you have mentioned basically listening, reading, speaking. And that's it. That's what we need to do. I would say writing as well, because that is something that I have done, to help learners prepare for part of the exam that is similar. Those of you who are familiar with Cambridge exams might have heard movers and starters, and those are flyers for the flyers. I mean, those are exams for primary and bilingual schools, but they are evaluating A1 and A2 levels, and they have just the same question. They have one dialogue and then four options, and learners need to select the most appropriate option. So what I have done in these cases when I am preparing learners for this, or when I am teaching teachers to prepare their learners for this part of the exam, is that I suggest they have a dialogue, like three or four exchanges of ideas, and then I just take pieces of it out, so they only see, for example, the questions, or somebody else only looks at the answers. I separate my students in pairs. First, I give each pair one part, maybe the questions or maybe the answers, and ask them to complete the dialogue. So they don't know the rest of the dialogue, they just have one part, what one person says, and they are expected to complete. As a result, as you can imagine, we end up having multiple versions of the same dialogue. And if I find something funny, like two friends talking, or maybe one parent and one his son or his daughter or something like this, what I do is I ask them to role play after that, and of course we work on grammar, we correct, and when all of it has done, I show them the original dialogue. So this is something that is fun. They enjoyed it. They are practicing listening, speaking, reading, writing, and at the same time they are developing their discourse competence. I'm preparing for this part of the exam. Okay, so what tips can we give learners? We can tell them things like identify the communicative intention of the message. So if I find, as we were saying before, would you like some coffee? They need to identify here is make an offer, to invite. So when they know this, they will know what is the most appropriate response. Another thing that we can say is underline the keywords. So if the question is, did he go to the restaurant that morning? So did is a word that indicates past tense, and if it says that morning, we know it's also referring to past tense. So those would be keywords to understand the time, at least the tense in which things are being used. So I know there is something in the story, something in the conversation that refers to a past event. Then it says consider the context, and of course, learners have read, they need to identify the relationship between the speakers. So in the case of the game, that is easy because we know one is the detective and the other person is the person in charge of the museum. But they need to understand what is the role of each person, how they will interact. And of course, they need to look at all the options. They need to decide which option is the most appropriate. I think the answer is C. In their minds, they also need to check everything. So they read the question, they read the answer. Does it make sense? If it does, they should continue. Oops, those are the suggestions. Okay, now we are moving to mission 5 and mission 6, which are about reading skills. Mission 5 takes place in Belize, and we know Belize is in Latin America, and in this case, the museum is Museum of Time, and it makes sense that learners decode objects like the ones that we have here. So at A1, they will decode the Mayan calendar. At A2, they will decode the sundial, and at B1, they will decode the hourglass. I remind you that you're going to get all the presentation when the teachers mark attended. When that happens, two things happen. One is the platform gives you experience points, so you get XP. And second, you are able to download all the presentation with all things that we have been saying. So don't worry about this. Just make notes of interesting ideas maybe that you find. Well, Mission 5 and Mission 6 have basically the same minigame. And at Mission 5 is called Mega Reader 1, and at Mission 6 is called Mega Reader 2. So that is the difference. But the purpose of the game is different. The purpose of it is literal reading skills. And for this one, as we were saying, it's reading comprehension, but for information that is clearly written on is explicit and they can find it. Now, what happens? It is related to Proa Saber Part 5 because it's also evaluating that. Then we have on the side of the screen, you're looking at the text. You can see it rapidly moving, but the truth is that learners have a chance to go back and check many times as they want to the text so they are able to answer the questions. There are 5 questions per round. The text is extensive because the text is around 200 words, 150 words, and they have to read two, twice and 2 times, the rounds in 7 minutes. So I would say one of the tricks here is managing time, so they are able to answer all the 5 questions. Okay, so literal reading. Literal reading is, we said, finding explicit information. Now, what we have on the screen is we have a text from, it was taken actually from the game. And in this text, it's an interaction between the avatar, and the avatar in this game is called Sparrow 38, sorry. And you see that the question that we are asking is, what is the agent's name, right? Now, looking at the same text, what other literal questions can you ask? Can you please type them in the chat box? With the same text, think of other literal questions that you can ask. We have just one example. The example is, what is the agent's name? Think of other possibilities.
Teacher Ruby says, why do you come?
Oh, very
That's
good.
her
Yes,
question.
very good. And the answer is to thank you personally. So yes, very good example. Another, can we find another literal question? Is it possible to ask another literal question?
Teacher Jonathan says, what the agent's name? I think it's the
Uh-huh.
same question we have in the example, right? Teacher Carolina says, what is the agent's nickname?
Well, the name and the nickname in this case would be the same, Sparrow 38. Yes. Any other example?
Teacher Nornelli says, what did he discover?
Hmm. We don't really know. In this text, say, when I heard about your discoveries, but it doesn't say what he discovered. So maybe that's not a good example of a question.
Teacher Edna says, have you got any news?
Not any
Teacher
news.
Glenda, Teacher Glenda says, is the person glad to meet Sparrow 38?
Yes, that is a good question because he says it's nice to meet you. So we can figure out, yeah, that he's glad to meet him.
And there are some other questions. Did the agent make discover?
Yes, very good. Good
When
example.
did when do you decide to come here?
Okay. Oh, yes. Good, good. Yes. So yeah, I know it's a very short piece of text, but it was good to see that we could identify several literal questions that learners can ask. So that's what happens in Mission 5 and also in Part 5 of Prueba Saber. Learners are given a text. We know the text is around 200, 250 words. They are expected to read the text and answer literal questions. So that means they don't need to infer. Information is there. Okay, so how can we help them? What advice can we give? It's very important for learners, of course, to understand the vocabulary. So they need to know the definition of the words. They need to identify the context. What is this text about? Uh, what information is it going to provide? Is it a description? Is it, I don't know, instructions? Is it a story? Is it an article? They need to identify the type of text. They need to recognize the main idea, and for this we know skimming is a very useful strategy. I don't know how you teach your learners to do skimming, but what I do is tell them that is zigzag reading, basically. I tell them read the first line and the last line of a paragraph. First line, last line, first line. So your eyes go like zigzag. First line, last line, first line. Why first and last? Because we know in English the topic sentence, the main idea is in the first and last line or first or last lines of a paragraph. Yeah, so when learners do this, they are better able to identify the main. And they also need to understand the sequence of thought. And if you remember what we were saying about discourse competence, sequence of thought has to do with linking words. They need to know the connection between the words. And of course, literal questions means that you find specific information. And another very useful reading soft skill is scanning. So in this case, the suggestion is that learners identify the text. So basically, scanning is learning to ignore the rest and only focus on that important information they are looking for. To help my learners practice this, I sometimes just give them a reading and say, okay, find three names. They don't have any other question, just that instruction. Find three names in the text, and they learn to do it. Yeah, they just go. Oh, Maria, Carlos, Jorge. All right, they got the three names, right? So we can do exercises like this to help them practice their scanning skills. And other useful strategies, you have them on the right side of the table. Then we have locating keywords. They might use highlighters or understand or underline, sorry, or circle the words. They can use a visual organizer, maybe to create summaries. Online, you can find lots of templates for visual organizers. Not only mind maps, but there are other simple visual organizers. It's like main idea, um, supporting ideas, conclusion, something like this. Already done. You just give it to your partners for you. Okay, mission 6, also connected to reading. This one takes place in the USA, and it's the Museum of the Unknown. And you're going to see why. Just look at these pictures that we have. These are the items that learners can decode. Can you tell me what is the common information about these items? You can use the chat box to answer. What do objects A1, A2, and B1 have in common?
Laura, they are talking about space, astronauts, the moon. Yes, astronauts, space, astronomy,
Yeah,
clothing to be in the space.
very, very good. Yeah, I must agree with everyone. Remember our gamification story in this module is colonizing the moon. But yeah, well, this part of the game has to do with space, as you were saying. Yeah, spaces. And it's because the readings are about first moon launching. Yeah, so that's basically why you have this. In the previous text time, there are different readings, and the readings are about how people in those times and Mayan times, in um, Aborigine times, how they measure time and how they read it. So that was another the reason why it was connected. And then we have Mega Reader 2. I told you it's very much the same game, and it does focus on inferential reading skills. Now, you just look at it. You have a text, once again, 200, 250 words. Learners have 5 different questions to answer and 7 minutes. The difference here is the type of question. So the type of question is more complex in the sense that the information is not there. They need to read, they need to think of what they understood from the text, and then they need to select the correct answers. So information is implicit. Okay, so how can we help learners be able to answer inferential questions? We have several ideas. So the first one is they need to combine ideas. They need to know, as we were saying, those linking words. They need to know if a sentence says, mm-hmm, yeah, that because it's connecting ideas and we know it's providing a reason. So that is something they need to know. They also need to draw conclusions. Yeah. So we can practice this after learners have done literal reading. We can ask them, okay, so what do you think? What reasons do we have about this? What are your conclusions? So we help learners use all the information they gathered and produce their own conclusions. They need to interpret and evaluate information. So they need to decide, for example, if the author's point of view are supporting an idea or are against the idea or are providing examples of the idea. They need to use information they have collected to identify what is happening. Then we have the tone and voice. So we know maybe the text is being sarcastic. Maybe the text is arguing something. Maybe the text is only narrating something. About the same topic. We can just have different points of view. We can have a different tone. It can be aggressive when you're reading and you read something and say like, "Oh, this person is angry. Was angry when he was writing that," or it can be friendly and inviting, right? So this is what learners need to evaluate. And of course, They need to understand others' points of view and attitudes. So what do we do to help them? This one is more complex because this one implies that they already know, they have already learned to manage literal reading in, in order to be able to develop inferential reading. So literal reading has some soft skills. We already talked about them, skimming and scanning. But for this one, learners also need to develop other things, like predicting, for example. That is very, very important. That learners learn to look at the heading or the title, they look at the pictures if they have any, and they start thinking. Okay, it says, I don't know, Maori dance before games. Oh, that is the title. And then I have some people like dancing. Oh, okay, I'm going to read about Maori culture, something that has to do with dances and games. Okay, so maybe sports, maybe they start thinking and connecting words to the topic. So predicting. They also need to infer meaning according to the context. And that is more important because they are likely to find words they don't know. And of course, during the pro saber exam or any English exam, basically, you cannot use the dictionary. So if you don't know a word and you can't use the dictionary, what else do you have? The only thing you have left is look at the word and look at the words around, yeah, and try to see the connection. So you know, oh, this word here, I don't know it, but it must be an adjective. Oh, and this, let me see, the idea is connected. Oh, this word means, and you start producing your inferences. You start imagining what the word is about, right? So this is another important skill they need to develop. And finally, they need to find reasons. That means inferring causality, being able to answer why something happens in a story. So, in order to help them develop these soft skills, we can have different strategies. We can ask them to, for example, create a mind map that's a visual representation of the text, or you say, no, just draw your favorite part of the story, and then we ask them, okay, what are you drawing here? What does it mean, and why? We can ask them to organize the events in chronological order, maybe with a timeline, and they need to put them in order. Um, we need them to understand back referencing. That term might be tricky if you haven't heard it before, but it's actually something very, very simple. And back referencing means that if you have a sentence, like, uh, say, for example, let me think. Um, I'm thinking of an example. Can you believe it? um, I don't know. Let's say Lorena's husband. I'm sorry, I'm using my husband for this. Lorena's husband used to live in Ibagué. His hometown is 3 hours away. Yeah. So when you have his and Lorena's husband, you know there is a clear connection. His refers to the person that I'm talking about, the subject. So it's back referencing because when somebody's reading and they identify a subject pronoun or an object pronoun or a possessive adjective or something, they need to relate it to the subject of the sentence, right? So back referencing in this case means that they are able to identify what is his hometown in the sentence. And they will say, oh, the town where Lorena's husband was born. Oh, his town. That is the connection. Yeah. So that is back referencing. And it also works with numbers. Yeah. So if you're reading 10 and later on it says them, talking about those 10 items or people we were referring to, so you know them refers to a plural um, noun that was mentioned before. So understanding personal nouns, understanding object nouns, understanding possessive adjectives. This is part of understanding back reference. Then we have, of course, identifying cohesive devices. We have been talking about them, linking words, making questions about implied meaning. That means that you don't only, when you're preparing questions for your learners, don't only leave them at what happened and how many people and what was his name. You can also ask why. What do you think huh, is the reason behind that? And it's certainly the most difficult part for learners because it means they need to have developed at a higher level. And when they have problems with reading comprehension in Spanish, they are going to have problems in reading comprehension in English because we know common theory of underlying surface, right? If learners have this situation in Spanish, it will be they will struggle with that. So we can work in alliance with the Spanish teacher and say, look, learners will have to understand text in English. I will help them with the English, but please help them identify the topic sentence of a paragraph. Please help them identify the difference between explicit and implicit information. Yeah. So if Spanish teachers help us with that, it will be easier. But if not, then it's our job to help learners, learn these tricks to do it as well. And finally, another thing that we can do is tell them, we give them a story and say, okay, now we're going to role play the situation. You need to invent a dialogue and you're going to, represent this character. And this is a very good example because learners need to know what is the character's attitude, background, history, everything in order to express ideas as if they were really taking the role of that person. So these are only some ideas, some of the things that we can do with our learners, right? So what tips can we give them? There are different things, but they will connect to things we mentioned before. One, predict. So whenever you give them a reading, even if you don't give them the text, just show them the title and say, what do you think this is connected to? Give them time to think. Or you can tell them, write 5 words that you connect to this. Yeah, and you ask them. So they start developing those predicting skills. Second, skim the text. I have used an app that is called, well, it's actually a website, Q Prompter. It's like a teleprompter, like when the text is quickly moving up, like it happens when you want to record a video. So when that happens, the text is moving, learners don't have the chance to go back and read again. So this is very good for skills. They have to read quickly in order to understand what the text is about. But if you don't have that, you can do it in a very simple way. You say, okay, look at the paragraph, and in 2 minutes, I will ask you to tell me what it is about. Only 2 minutes. Of course, learners will not have the chance to read everything. It's impossible. So they just need to learn to read the first and the last sentences of the paragraph, and so they will know what is the main idea or the topic sentence. You can ask them to read the question, underline the keywords, and say, oh, they are looking for a date, a number. What information do I need? Circle those words so they will be easily focused when they are scanning to find the answers. Another very important piece of information is to tell them that they are never going to find the same answers. Never. You don't find the same words. You're not going to find I don't know. I'm it's funny when you think of words and you can find them. I will markers and erasers, but probably you will find something as items. So you're going to find something, a paraphrasis or a synonym, or maybe in the text it says huge, and in the question it says gigantic or enormous. Yeah. So it's not the same word. They need to paraphrase and they need to find examples of that in the text. They also need to find similarities and differences. And finally, they need to be able to identify the writer's point of view when they are reading. I would say connected to this is the purpose of the text. Is this an instruction? Is this a recipe? Is this a narrative? Is this a story or anything? Right? Okay, so with this, we finish our part about missions 3, 5, and 6. Just quick reminders. Mission 3 is about discourse competence that can be developed when learners start asking questions, when learners are able to keep the ball going in a way to keep the conversation going, and also when learners are able to understand and produce language that is coherent and appropriate for whatever circumstances. So listening activities, speaking activities, interaction, real language, as you were saying, movies, stories, dialogues, news, all of it. And missions 5 and 6 are about reading, so we need to focus on reading skills. And for this, it's very useful to remember that we have pre-reading, while reading, post-reading, right? We have 3 moments. So before the reading, develop those predicting skills, get them to think about what they know. During reading, ask them to skim and scan, most likely, identify these words. And Also, maybe you can throw some more inferential questions like why, what are the reasons, how can you explain this or that, yeah. And finally, post reading connected to a productive skill. Ask them to write about what they read or ask them to talk about what they read. Yeah. So when we do this, we are helping learners to effectively develop the reading skill. Okay, and we are moving to the last part of our webinar today, and this is about the cultural aspect of missions 3, 5, and 6. We have already mentioned that they happen in different places, different countries, and now we're going to see how we can help learners learn more about the culture in this country. So, Museum 3, remember the country? Some of you told us that they have rugby teams. We were talking about their dances. We talked about the tattoos. Oh, New Zealand. Yes, very good. Okay, so for the Museum of Adventure, the suggested idea, this is only one idea. You can, of course, come up with your own. The suggested idea is that learners create a digital crafts museum. So it's similar to the one that we did with Colombia, but this is about New Zealand. So how can they do this? You can divide them into pairs or groups. You can ask them to search for Maori cultural artifacts and choose one of them, both cultures. Well, they have already checked some of the information in the game. They will have found something. But there are other things. I don't know if you know, but Maori culture is famous for their kites, for example. So maybe they can go and find. And then they have to select one object and they need to prepare a written description of the object or maybe record voice message about this object. And then you want them to create a virtual display. So we have a virtual museum. How can we do it? One way is using Padlet. Today we were using Padlet to exchange different ideas. Over here, we can ask them the same. Each group will go and post a message in Padlet, including a picture of the object and their description of the object. So this is what they can do. Of course, when other groups come and visit the Padlet, the idea is that they will not only post, but they will read, what others have written. If your learners do not have access to Padlet, you can still tell them, please send your work, send what you found in your descriptions via, WhatsApp or something. So they will be able to exchange ideas. So this is one idea for Museum 3, Museum of Adventure, and also have this conversation about New Zealand's culture. Then you have Museum 5 with me. Remember, this is the Museum of Time, Belize. Very good. And the thing with time is that people in different countries have different ideas about being punctual and being on time. So if you have ever had the chance to either visit England or talk to an English person, you know that for them, being punctual is being quarter, a quarter forward, quarter two. So 15 minutes before time. So if you said the meeting is at 4, they will be there waiting for you at 3:45. And that's how it works for them. But we know Colombian perception of time is in general a little bit more relaxed. So I would say maybe it can be 5 minutes before or even 5 minutes after the time, and we wouldn't feel that bad because we say, oh, I'm getting there. you know, like when you call your friends out, oh, ya te caigo. Llego allá en 2 minutos. And you're still at home, probably getting dressed just to. Or, well, nowadays with virtual conferences, you say, oh, just give me a minute, but you haven't even started, turning the computer on. So those are some of the things that happen in Colombian culture. What does the text say? Heido, please.
Teacher Jonathan says people say, I will say 5, so they get here at 6.
Yes.
Ahorita means never, right? In
Oh my
Colombia.
goodness. That is true. Personal confession. When I was going to get married, I invited everyone at 7, but I told the man who was going to marry us to come at 8. And I did it on purpose, because I said if I tell them before, if I said it's at 8, people will come and will not see my wedding. So I asked them to come 1 hour in advance, and of course they thought I was having cold feet, but that was not the case. It was only I planned it strategically, so my friends would be there to see the time. Okay, so cultural perceptions of time, and the idea here is that learners, this very thing we are talking about, they start finding who are more punctual or less punctual, what is considered polite, what is not polite, regarding punctuality, and they understand their perception of time. And so they kind of start talking about, or maybe you can prepare questions for them and they can rotate. I think this is a very good idea for work on stations. Those of you who have worked in preschool know that stations is when you have tables, different tables, and you have every table, each of the tables has a set of questions or information, and learners need to complete a task. Then they move to another station, they change tables, they move to another station, and so on. So you can have different things like this. Is this polite or not? Maybe situations, or maybe you can have a reading about England and another reading about Colombia, and maybe one of the stations can be even talking about your own experiences. What have you done when you are late? What excuses do you come up with? Or what have people tell you, so they can have this chance. And we are still talking about how time perceptions change. Do we have any other ideas in the chat box?
No, Laura, is basically the same thing. Teacher Edna says her kids are a clear example of maybe what Colombians perceive the time, right?
Okay.
And teacher Janet says is a typical Colombian sayings.
Oh, you're right. And I am from Bogota, but born and raised in different parts of the country. So people don't perceive me as Rola. I'm not a Rola typical, And what happens is, I was once working in the coast. I will not tell you specifically which city, so you don't know. But it was very surprising for me because I had a training session to give, and people arrived 1 hour later, and I was like, 1 hour. Oh my God. And they told me it was raining. And for everyone, it was clear. I mean, if it rains, you're going to be late and nobody should complain. And of course, as a Rola, deep inside, I was not able to understand that until much later. So that was part of it. Things that happen with time. Okay. Museum of the Unknown, Mission 6. This one is about life in the outer space. Which country? Do you remember? Which country is this one? Museum of the Unknown. We had New
The
Zealand,
United
Belize,
States.
the United States. Yes, thank you very much. And this one is about, well, we were saying that it has to do with, spaceships and space travel and people going to the moon, which is also related to our gamification story in this module. And the thing is that you have something like life in the outer space. And for this, you can do something, especially if you find pictures that are more interesting than the ones that we have over here. You can get learners to find pictures of aliens, from sci-fi TV, or even draw them, and they can describe them, and they can talk about, if they were going to invent a new alien species and, prepare a home for them, and they would present them and vote for them. So it's an opportunity to talk about, give them a chance for creativity, come up with something, share your experiences, and we might find people who are good writers, very creative, or can draw very interesting things. Okay, so we are finishing now, and this is your quiz. Very formal. I want you to look at the question that we have on screen. This question is to assess what you learned about Mission 3. What could you do to help learners develop their communicative knowledge or discourse competence? We have 5 options. Option A is give them practice in identifying a question and the most appropriate response given the message conveyed. Option B, help them develop their listening skills. Option C, provide opportunities for oral practice with speaking activities about real life situations. Option D, use language awareness tasks to help them identify discourse markers, linking words, signposting language, fillers, etc. And option E is all of the above. So what would you say? Is the correct answer A, B, C, D, or E? Type your response in the chat box, please.
100% of the teachers that have answered, they say E.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, let's
Yeah, all of them.
celebrate. We got it. Perfect teachers. You know, this is in sign language, this is clapping. So I'm clapping for all of you. Okay, fantastic. That's the correct answer. Yeah, we need to do all of these things. I'm really happy to see that the message was conveyed. Okay, missions 5 and 6. What reading soft skills do learners need to develop uh, literal and sorry, what skills do they need to develop literal and inferential reading? There is something wrong with the question there. What skills do they need in order to develop literal and inferential reading skills? And I give you the chance to read and select from A to G which is the correct answer.
Lore, we have like 20 teachers typing in this moment, and all of them say G.
Oh, fantastic. Yes. Okay. Yes. Well done. If you said G and if you said E previously, you can just have a happy face or a starting here. You did it. Just passed webinar 2. Oh, great. Fantastic. Well, now is the chance for you to ask all those questions. I know that Jairo has been collecting some of them. No, I'll try and do my best answering them.
Okay, Lore, thank you very much. That was a great presentation. I think it was so much great because there are not like questions at all. We had one question about authentic material, but I think you already gave the answer, right? So the question was basically, what is the meaning of authentic material? I don't know if you want to maybe reinforce the answer again to
Sure.
this question.
Thank you.
Hi,
Yes,
can I ask
authentic
a
material.
question?
Sure,
Yes, teacher,
teacher.
of course. Let's listen to Lorena answering to this question, and
Okay,
then you
okay.
can go. Okay, thank you, teacher.
Thanks. Okay, so authentic material refers to material that has been designed for English speakers, not for people who are learning a language. So we can't say that readers original books are authentic material. The news, the sitcom series, TV, songs, all of that is authentic material. All right. We'll hear the teacher.
Thank you, Lore. Teacher Jonathan, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Jairo and Lorena. My question has to do not with the presentation, but with the management of the app. It's because I have some doubts. I have already downloaded and I already registered myself there as a teacher, but I want to know if from my from the app registering as a teacher, you can see what your students can do, because so far what I have done, I played Mission 1, for example, but I don't know if the app helps me see what my students are doing. I don't see an option there. So it's great. I mean, if I were a student, I would be happy with the app because it's really fun. But as a teacher, I don't know how I can use it.
Right. Well, thank you very much for your question, Teacher Jonathan. First of all, I'm really happy to see that to know that you're already using it, that you have liked it. Um, yeah, the app itself does not have the option for you to look at the resources. But if you Google mm, Colombia Aprende Be the One Challenge, there is a website, and I'm sure your tutor will also give you the link for that. And that website has resources, and there is also something called panel de control, tablero de acompañamiento. I think it's in Spanish. And you go down there, and it says tablero de acompañamiento, ir al tablero. You click there, and then you enter a website, and this website is teachers. And this website is connected to the results, all the results that learners are getting. So the first step to access is that you register. So the link, the username, and the password that you have for the app is not the same that you're going to have for the dashboard or the acompañamiento. So the first thing is register there. If you have problems, as usual, write an email to be the one rayasoporte@mineducacion.gov.co. And then when they reply back and your account is created, you will be able to access the results of your school. Nobody else watches those resources. I mean, it's only for you. You're able to see what is happening, all the students in your institution that are playing the game. You can see specific results. So you can see mission one, what they got, mission two, what they got, in general, how they are doing, which level they are playing, how quickly or how slowly they answer the questions, and all of this. In Unit 2, we are going to learn more about the tablero de acompañamiento. I think somebody just posted the link in the chat.
Thank you very much for your answer, Lorena.
You're welcome, teacher. Do we have any
Lore, we have a question from teacher Marta Gomez, and the question is, what is the app or website to practice skimming? She didn't understand the name, so could you please maybe recommend it again?
Okay. Well, I did not say the name of any websites for skimming in particular. Um, as I was telling you before, you can practice skimming with any type of text, with any reading. But maybe you are referring to the one that I use, that is a Q prompter. I suppose that the question goes to that. So let me see if I can type in the chat box.
Hi, sorry. Can I explain my question? It was because you were saying that you use, yes, you say like a website where you could, like your students could see like a really quick text and they should
Yes.
read it and then they were going to answer some like a question, but it was really quick. But I couldn't
Yes.
listen to the name or I couldn't understand the name.
Right, teacher. I just typed in the chat box, is Q prompter. I always Google it. I Google Q prompter and then I find the website. But it is a Web 2.0 tool. It's for free. And what you do is you take the text, you just copy it from, the textbook or whatever place where you have it. You paste it in Q prompter and then you select the speed. You can say, how quickly you want the text to go up or how slowly, and it's basically there. So your learners, when you start playing it, you control it with the space bar, barra espaciadora, and you just control it from there, and it starts moving. You stop once again with the space bar, or you just change the speed to make it go quicker or slowly.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome. You're welcome. I think we still have some more time for questions in case you have them.
So far, there are not any other question, Lore, and unless one teacher wants to talk or maybe send the question in this moment to the chat. They're saying all of them, thank you. It was a great presentation, Lore.
Thank you very much, teachers. If we don't have any other questions, I do have something else to show you. One is the references, because I was talking about. Do we have a question?
Oh, yes, sorry. I know it's a proposal. I found this site is eslgamesworld.com. In this one, you can look up written activities, and there is one that I really loved it. Is who killed Amanda Spelling or something like that. And you were given a map to find out all the clues for the murderer and who was the murderer, and you have to scheme. All the activities is scheming, and it's really interesting. Yes, if you wanna, I'm trying to look at it, but I couldn't find it. But I'm gonna do later, right? That's all.
Teacher,
Thank you.
Teacher
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And please send it to your tutor. I don't know if it's Edna or Gerardo. So they'll share it with me. Please share this link with Lorena, and I will share it with my teachers, please.
All right. Okay.
Thank you
you
very much. Okay, last but not least, before we leave, can you please give us feedback on how the webinar was for you? If you were very satisfied, you can type A, B, C, or D, depending on how you feel.
Lore, so far in this moment, 100% of the teachers say A. They are very satisfied with the webinar.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I enjoyed, being with all of you, your responses, your active participation, and also, of course, Jairo support. So thank you for this invitation.
Teacher Sergio has one last question, and he's asking about where he can watch this session recorded.
Well, teachers, I will download the video, or I will ask Jairo to download the video. I don't know who will do it first. Once it is downloaded, we will upload it in a YouTube link, and we will connect the video to the same course. So next time that you entered in option 2, you will be able to enter YouTube and watch the corresponding video. Those of you who will be watching the video later, if you want tutors to mark that you attended asynchronously, what you need to do is just text message, WhatsApp message, or email. Tell your tutor, I watched the video. I saw Lorena answering these questions. I like this part. I have this question. With this, that is evidence for your tutor to mark your attendance by watching the video. Okay, so thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
I think this is it, right, Haida?
Yeah, we don't have any other question. 100% of the teachers are very satisfied. So I think we're finished.
Yes.
Thank you very
Okay.
much, dear teachers.
Thank you. See you.
Bye
I have
bye.
sent the link, so you can find it in the chat. And thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you,
Right.
teacher. Bye bye.
Bye, teachers. Thank you very, very much.